Alright, so I figured I would do a video while I'm cooking. I was gonna cover this in a different video, but I realized that if I wait until I'm done making my food to do the video, that I'm probably going to fall asleep. I haven't been doing as many of these recently since I've been having a bit of issues with my memory, and also I think I tore my quadricep recently, so that's been kind of kicking my ass in terms of how I feel on my free time. Anyway, so today I wanted to talk about the topic of how people perceive you, and I also kind of wanted to go over how not really internalizing the good or the bad things that other people say about you, because other people are often going to say good things about you or bad things about you, depending on how it is that you've treated them specifically, that don't necessarily have to do with who you are as a person. I find that a lot of people seem to internalize these comments they receive from other people. They internalize when somebody says they've done something right. They internalize when somebody says that they are a bad person. And they really let it get to them in a way that I don't think they should. And I wanted to discuss that with this video. So I just wanted to give a couple of anecdotes, just a couple of anecdotes from just my last week, not even my whole life, just my last week, that really kind of shed light on this and just how it is I come to these conclusions. And it's not necessarily something that just has to do with your personal life, with being a good or a bad person. It's also something I notice with when people say you are a professional or you are not a professional, you are being unprofessional. I'll often hear that. Somebody will say I'm being unprofessional when I'm not giving them what they want. But when I'm giving them what they want, I could be doing it in whatever method possible. They think I'm a consummate professional. Now, let's just go over, let's see, what example should I use here? Alright, so let's go over an example from just this past week. So as some of the people that know me know, I like to go to a lot of the same restaurants over and over again. And I get the same thing over and over again. If I find something that I like to eat, I see no reason to try anything else for several years. It's very silly, but there are certain restaurants that I just really, really enjoy going to. And there's this one restaurant that I absolutely love going to, and there's one person there that always understands what I want, always gets what I want. Let's say there's a specific spice that I like. Oh, good example. I'm actually that one lunatic that will keep his spices of choice at his particular restaurant. I won't bitch if they're not available, but just to make life easy so I don't have to carry it around, you gotta see this in the camera. This is amazing. This autofocus, I gotta say, is much faster than the Sony camera I have at work. Look at that. Focus on the face, focus on the salt. Focus on the face, focus on the salt. I think I'm just kind of looking for reasons to rip my other quadricep while I'm at it. Anyway, this is really good stuff. And there's one person there that always, when I come in, they're nice, they know what I want, they have a seat and a table prepared for me, they bring this down, they put my order in, they get all the things I need with my order, they know that I like a fork with it even though you don't necessarily eat that food with a fork. Everything is just always prepared the way I want it. Every now and then, if I've spent a lot of money that week, they throw in a couple of things for free, right? Just stuff that the other people at this place don't necessarily do. And one day I come in and we have a little bit of a conversation every now and then. That superficial small talk bullshit that the rest of the world actually thinks is a conversation. We have this little small talkish kind of conversation, and this person's having a problem finding an apartment because they work for a restaurant that is everybody off the books. There's no proof that they get paid. Even if there was proof they got paid, with the low amount of money they do get paid, nobody in New York is going to want to rent an apartment to them, and it is a bit of a challenge. And I've helped one of my friends out with this in the past. One of my friends was looking to get a commercial space. They knew they could afford it. I knew they could afford it. I had no doubt in my mind they can afford it, but there was no way in hell anybody was going to rent space to them. So I said, okay, how about this? I just say that you work for me, your boss is so busy making money and doing all this crazy stuff that they don't have time to go around and run around searching for a space. So I am looking on his behalf. I will sign I'll sign the lease agreement, I'll provide all my financial statements and my bank statements and all that, and it'll look like I make good money and they'll be happy. Time to turn this over. That's the boiling water falling out onto the stove. I suck at this. Anyway, and it went well. He wound up getting the space. He paid for it for the first year. Now the landlord happened to notice that the person paying for the space was not the person who was on the lease, and that the person that was actually on the lease was never there, but Here's the thing with landlords. A landlord is never going to kick out somebody that pays their rent and doesn't screw up the space. It doesn't matter if they find out that they got tricked a few months later. They're not going to risk having a month or 2 months or 6 months or a year of having nobody in the space. They're more than happy to keep that person. And that person is still in that space to this day. So I offered the same thing to this person at the restaurant. I said, how about this? I'm not going to pay for any of this stuff. You find a place that you like. You say that I'm renting this for my boss, and I will give you the statements. I will, sign the lease. You pay, I give you the keys, and everybody lives happily ever after. And they're like, oh, that's too much. And I say, no, it's not. And here's one of the things in life that I want you to understand. When people are trying to think about how to get ahead and how to get people to do favors for them and how to just get any support in anything, I'm not kidding. The fact that this person is the only person at this restaurant that remembered where I kept my salt, this is the reason that I'm helping this person get a nice apartment and get a place to live. It's not costing me any money. I'm not paying a dime here. It's just I filled out an application. I printed out a couple of bank statements. I printed out some, other forms that showed income and whatnot. It took me all of 5 minutes of time, and it's 5 minutes that I wouldn't give to the people who don't give those small gestures. But it's these small fucking gestures, like remembering what I eat every day, smiling when I show up, and remembering where that I want this without me having to ask for just a stupid little shit. I will put myself on the line. That water is boiling over. I will put myself on the line for some $30,000 lease because somebody got me the salt. It's just something to think about, but that's a lesson for another video. And at the end of it, when everything is completed and they wind up getting the space, they look at me and they go, "You're a really good person." And I looked at him and I said, "No, I'm not. Really?" And they said, "No, yes you are." And I go, "You're only saying that." And I didn't mean to be mean about it. It's just you're saying that because I helped you. I could be an axe murderer. I could be the type of person that instead of petting a cat like this, like little Blackberry when she shows up in the middle of my video, instead of petting little Blackberry, I could be the type of person that would murder a little Blackberry, that would kill her, that would slice and dice her to pieces and enjoy it and film it and record it and dance in her blood. That's the type of person that I could be. You'd never know. You're only saying that I'm a good person because I've done something positive for you specifically. And this is one of the reasons that I don't allow myself to start internalizing those good comments. I don't internalize all those positive comments from the people that I help. I don't allow them to inflate my self-worth or how I feel about myself, because I know deep down that all of those positive comments that I receive from all these little people that I help in all the different ways in life, not just in this, whole mother order pair and YouTube shit, there are other things that I do, but in all these little parts of my life, I don't internalize it, because if I do, then I have to start internalizing everything else that's wrong. All the bad stuff that's wrong, all the stuff that's not true that is negative towards me. So let's say another situation I had. Years and years back, I wanted to start a different type of company, right? I wanted to start this different type of company. So I went to this one person, and that I remember pointing out every single thing that was wrong with one of the people that they invested money in. So I used to work out of a space. This person invested money with the person who owned that space. The person who owned that space was somebody who had a really, really bad drug habit and overall just wasn't that intelligent. And I remember getting completely plastered and wasted one night. And while I was wasted, the person asked me, what do they think of the decision that they made? And I remember just getting a piece of paper and saying, these are the expenses, right? These are the expenses. This is how much money the place brings in. Do you understand how it is that you're never getting your money back? And I remember saying, like, with this cockiness in my voice, if you had given me that money, I would have given you back 10 times as much, and I would have, or at the very least, I would have just paid you back, blah, blah. And then he sees that I'm doing my business and I'm doing what I do, and he just offers me money, just outright offers me a loan for something like $7,000. I don't know if I asked or he offered. To be honest, I was pretty wasted. I drank an entire thing of Southern Comfort, and I hadn't eaten anything that day. So even that small little bottle of Southern Comfort, it will fuck you up if you hadn't eaten anything that day. I don't drink anymore, but I did drink a decent amount at that time. So I wind up getting it, and he says, pay me back within a year. Pay me back this much per month. In 2 months, I paid him back the entire amount. No strings, no bullshit. In 2 months, I pay back the entire amount with interest. Then, about, I would say, a month and a half or 2 months later, I find a new opportunity. That new opportunity requires a little bit more money. So I figured, this time I'll come to him and say, listen, I really appreciate what you did. Hopefully you see that I'm a person that, is of my word. I will pay you back. there's this new opportunity. I explained it, why I wanted the money, why it was a good opportunity, how I'd make the money back, and I asked for a little bit more money. And I said, can it be the same thing? I'll pay you the same amount of interest, and instead of paying you back in a year, I'll pay you back in, let's say, 2 months. And he says, I don't want to do it. I don't want to give you a loan. I want a partnership. I want to be a percentage owner of a new business that we start together based around this idea. And I didn't really know how I felt about that at the time, because it was a particularly intimidating individual. I didn't know how I felt about it. And after some thought, I came to the wrong decision to go ahead with it. Now, a few months in, we decided to get lunch while we're talking about this idea. We decided, he's not really that type of hands-on business partner, the type of guy that is, coming up with ideas. He's the type of dude that if he notices that I need a counter to ship stuff, he'll build a table. But he's not the kind of person that's looking at all the little processes in the business. So we get lunch, and he's asking about profits and gross and blah, 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 and what I'm doing. And he's not really involved. It's like, this is like a once-a-month conversation or once every 3 months conversation. And he's like, why aren't we making more? Why aren't we making this much? Or this much? What do you have to do to make this much? What do we need to do to make this much in sales? And I said, well, it's a business that sells stuff. So in order to make more money selling stuff, I need more money to buy more stuff. Now we can make that in time, but he just kind of cuts me off and says, what would you be able to do if you had more money now? And I explained to him what I'd be able to do if I had more money now versus waiting until later for me to just come up with, me to just keep rolling the profits back into the business and growing it that way, right? So then he just looks at me and he goes, what would more money be worth to you? And I go, what do you mean? And he's like, would it be worth 20% of your company, 40% of your company, 60% of your company? What would more money be worth to you? And here my heart sunk, because I kind of realized that since I was young, I was in my early 20s, that this person kind of saw that I had a good idea, that I was a hard worker, that I was willing to put a lot of time and effort into an idea. My cat is laughing at how bad I am at cooking. They knew that I could put a lot of effort into a good idea, and I knew that I just saw like the snake come out, like this little sniveling snake that just saw that I may be hungry for opportunity. I may be so focused in the short term that I would give up a large percentage of a business that I had started just because I was focused on success and on these short-term goals. And I looked at him and I remember being as polite as I could, and I'm like, sir, I'm in my early 20s, you're 50. I understand that you're in a bigger rush than I am, but it actually wouldn't be worth any percentage to me at all. I'm more than happy to wait. I'm more than happy to wait to see where it goes. I am not in this like crunch where I'm broke and I need to make as much money or make my company as big as possible, as quick as possible. So to answer your question, it would literally be worth nothing to me. And that's where you just kind of start to frown. And that was the truth. It really wasn't worth that much more to me. And that was when I realized that, man, I got myself into some shit. And over the next few months, they're like, okay, what can we do to make more? What can we do to make more? So I wound up, instead of following my gut, instead of doing what the company was designed to do, which was find rare goods that nobody else had, buy them at a really low price, and then sell them at a market price and make money, low volume, high profit, I wound up trying to find all these ideas on how to increase sales. And what resulted is a business that instead of making a small amount of money every month, but a decent amount, but a small amount, was a business that made a negative amount every month. A business that did not have processes in place where you could watch and just make sure that everything was going the way it was supposed to, where somebody would send something back for a refund, and literally by the time you got around to processing the refund, they had already filed the chargeback. And I'm not even talking about like, it sat there for a week. It's like it sat there for 3 hours, and the expectation via those channels was that it'd be instant. It was just such a nightmare. It was such a mess. And a large part of it was my fault. It was my fault because I ran the business, and I also let somebody else into my head. I let that little voice into my head that was talking about how can we make more quicker? This is not enough. This is not what we should be shooting for. We should be shooting for this. What do we need to do to be up there? And I was thinking about this crap 3 months into a new fucking business. And I was young. I wasn't as experienced as I am now. I didn't have a lot of the mindsets I do now. A lot of the time when I'm yelling at you in these core philosophies and these business talk playlists, I'm not yelling at you as somebody that just reads shit on the internet and makes it up. I'm yelling at you because all the things that that I'm telling you to focus on are things that I wasn't focusing on, things that I did wrong, that lost me real money, that lost me real time. But I digress. I did all these things wrong, and as a result, the company lost and lost and lost. It lost its vision and it lost its money. And at one point, I saw a couple of opportunities, and I wasn't willing to give up a percentage. But he was so impatient that he was actually willing to throw another loan in. He was willing to throw another loan in because I said, I think we can make money reselling certain things. I was dead wrong. I couldn't make shit money reselling that stuff. I wasn't lying about it. I thought it was a good idea. I explained it to him as it was set out. I said, here's what I can buy it for. Here's what other people are selling it for. Here's the demand. And it wound up not having the demand that I thought. It was a genuine mistake. It was a genuine mistake that I made because I was trying to increase sales at any cost. I wasn't thinking about business the way I usually think about business, about just growing and growing and going with what works. I was trying out these new things before they were tested because I had a little voice in my head from that lunch that we had earlier about just making more. What's it worth to you to have? What would it be worth to you to have more money and more sales and blah, blah, blah. I was focusing on the wrong metrics. And that business wound up failing. And when it failed, a good amount of the money that was loaned to the business by him was not returned to him. And for a while, I was actually paying it back every month personally. And I started to think about this after a while. It's like, and I have a good friend of mine who's actually in prison right now. It sucks because he provides an excellent perspective on these things. And he's talking to me and he's pointing out how fucked up it is. It's like, you got somebody to be a venture capitalist in your company. You didn't even want a business partner. You did not want a partner. You wanted a loan, right? You didn't want a partner. You didn't want a partner. You wanted a loan. Somebody partners with you and invests in a new company and helps you start it. That company then fails while you're following their ideas. And then that person wants their money back. Do you understand how fucked up this is? And he's like, this is the person investing. And the investor, when the business fails, wants it back. No. See, and it was something that I kind of thought about. You see, if I asked for a loan. If I fail to pay back a loan, that's, we can go back and forth on whether or not I have to pay that back. But I asked for a loan and you decided that you were not going to give me a loan. You wanted a partnership. You demanded a partnership. And then you accepted a partnership. And then you set the terms of the partnership. And then when things went sour, when they didn't go according to plan, now, well, I did something wrong by deciding that I wasn't going to pay you back out of my own money. And here's the thing I want you to understand about partnerships. Here's what I want you to get about partnerships. When a partnership fails, two people are at fault. Not one, but two. So I lost my time, I lost the money that I put into the business, and he also lost time, but he also loses the money that he put into the business. And he came in today to talk about this for a good hour, And it was, it started off with the same bullshit conversation, like, how are you going? How's this? How's that? How's that? So yeah, I'm really bitter about this deal that we had. And I'm like, well, yeah, it sucked. I take responsibility for the parts of it that sucked. I take responsibility for the fact that a lot of the things did not go the way that I wanted them to go. But what I'm not going to take responsibility for is the money that you invested into the business. Because I never wanted to be business partners with you. I never wanted to enter that type of arrangement where we're partners and we both take, and you have an actual stake in the business. I wanted you to simply give me money to go about my business and do what I do, and then for me to give you that money back. In that case, this person would have no stake in the business. It wouldn't matter if the business failed or did well because he loaned me money. And then if I don't pay him back that money, that's something that would be, we can discuss it, but most people would consider that wrong. I asked for a loan. Under the terms of a loan, me not paying it back would be incorrect. But as partners, as you being an investor in a new company that you are a partial owner of, if that company then goes under, listen, that's partnership. That is partnership. And he goes, that's wrong. That's wrong. What you are doing is wrong. What you did is wrong. And he goes on to all of these rants and I know you're a good guy, but what you're doing right now is bad and you're being a bad person and blah, blah, blah. And I don't internalize it the same way I don't internalize the positive comment. You have to understand, because the positive comments with the person who I was helping get an apartment, the only reason I received that positive comment, that again, that person does not know who I am. They do not know my business life. They don't know my personal life. They know nothing about me other than the food that I get, the salt that I like, and the fact that I helped them get an apartment. They know nothing about me when they're going on about how I'm a great person. I need to feel like I'm a great person. I need to understand that I'm a great person. They know nothing about me, yet they're saying it. So if I internalize that, then I have to also internalize when somebody who doesn't understand who I am, doesn't understand how I think, says I'm a bad person just because I didn't give them what they wanted. You understand? See, when somebody invests into a business and that business fails, that is a risk-reward type of thing. So if you invest in a business and that business fails, listen, man, sucks to be you, really. I mean, that's the way our society works, and that's the way that this business arrangement was written out. We are both stakeholders in a business. If that business happens to fail, then it is on you as well as it is on me. I am not going to personally pay back a venture capitalist. It doesn't make sense. And that was what my friend, who is unfortunately now in prison, was explaining. It's like, you have a venture capitalist, yet you are doing the work, and you're putting your own money in, and when the business doesn't do well, the venture capitalist now wants you to pay him back out of your purse. What the? And I had a conversation about this years ago, right? I said, listen, I appreciate everything you've done for me. And if I win the lotto, I will pay you back. But as long as I'm a regular old middle-class guy, I am just, no. It's just, again, like, no. It's in the most polite way possible, no. You know, like if the people who invested in Microsoft invested in the business, and Microsoft got their ass kicked by Apple in the 80s, and Microsoft went under, do you think Bill Gates would have went back to the people who invested money in his company and given them their hundreds of thousands of dollars back out of his personal paychecks for the rest of his life? No, like, it's not how business works. So this person decided to come to me about how I'm being a bad person, I'm doing the wrong thing, when I'm actually doing the right thing. I'm doing exactly what it is business people do. I'm doing exactly what it is other people would do in that situation. We had an agreement. You don't like the fact that things didn't go well. When you invest in a company, there's a great potential for great reward. And you had that great potential. But there's also a great potential for great loss. There's a potential for things to go sideways. And that's a risk that you have to take. I never asked you to take that risk. I asked you for a loan. I asked you for a loan as somebody who I had just taken a loan from and paid back in full with interest 10 months early. I asked you for a loan. And within the confines of a loan, you would be a personal loan, you would be completely in the right to say, listen, man, you owe me that money. But you decided that you didn't want that. You wanted to start a company together, and you wanted to be the principal investor in that company. Within the confines of our relationship, and as my CPA has explained to me, who I've been using the same CPA for the past 7 years, he's actually the CPA that I met through this guy. So keep in mind, this guy, my CPA has a longer standing relationship with the guy who invested in this company than I have with him. And he's saying, yeah, he has no right to be asking you these things. Anyway, within the confines of that relationship, everything I've done is right. But because what I've done does not benefit you, is not what you wanted, is not the ideal result, I'm now a bad person. I'm now a person who does bad things. And this is why I want you to really think about when people start kind of judging you and talking to you about the kind of person you are, why it is I don't want you to internalize it. And it's why I don't want you to internalize even the good comments. Because when you start internalizing those good comments, you kind of open yourself up to internalizing the negative ones. And the reason that I don't let these things get to me is because I don't internalize either of them. I care about whether I can live with myself. The only person whose opinion matters to me is mine and the opinions of the people that I care about, the people that are close to me in my inner circle. If my best friend says, Louis, you're a bad person because you did that, I would have to really sit there and think about that. I'd have to really sit there and reflect on it. If a business partner / vulture that was just looking to make as much money off of a young person that seemed to be really passionate about their business wound up getting the shit end of a deal that they decided, that they shook hands on, that they agreed to, Do I give two shits of a fuck with it? No, I don't. The same way that, again, like, I'm nice to people. I will help people out in the most ridiculous ways. $30,000 of liability because this person remembers to give me my salt. That is how much I care. That is how much I will help people. And I'm not going to internalize that, because if I internalize this, then I have to, again, that person knows nothing about me. They're not a friend. They're not in my inner circle. They don't know what I do for a living. They don't know me personally. They don't know what I've been through. They don't know who I am. They only know me for what I've done to them. They only know me as somebody who orders the same thing every day and who offered in this one small area of life, because I've known them for a couple of years and they've never been a douchebag to me, that I decided to help them with their lease. That doesn't mean that I'm a good person. Again, that is no grounds for them to say that I am a good person. Are you seriously looking at broccoli? My cat always has to look at the food that I'm eating, the stuff that I'm about to eat, constantly. And it's always this jealousy. Clinton? See, that's jealousy. But if I put that broccoli in his bowl, he's not going to turn into a vegan. But you'll cry about it, won't you? I just fed him too. Just the fact that he sees that I'm eating something that I'm not sharing with him just irritates him so much. Anyway. Yeah, it's just something to think about. I don't internalize this stuff because I don't want people that are not in my inner circle to be able to bring me down. Again, if I get a comment from a close family member that I care about, whose opinion I value, if I get a comment from my best friend, I will think about it. If I get a comment from some venture capitalist whose investment that they agreed to, that they pushed for, happened to go sour, I'm not going to care. If somebody starts calling me this amazing person because I barely know, I'm not going to let it go to my head. It's the same thing goes with YouTube comments. I mean, you have these people that will get so depressed, so brought down by YouTube comments that say that you're a bad person, you're a hypocrite, you're this, you're that. And you see it. You see people that actually get brought down that have larger channels by their comments because they allow this to become their world. They internalize the shit that they see on the screen. They internalize the shit that people say to them. And it's just at the end of the day, how can you allow that to happen? Again, it's the same thing with customers. When people walk in and I solve their problem, they think I'm a genius. They think I'm God. They love me. They leave a tip. They say, I'm going to leave this great review. You're a great person. Thank you. Sometimes I get a hug when I'm able to recover somebody's data that they lost, that they would be in big trouble for if I didn't recover. I'll get all this stuff. And I know not to internalize any of it. I know not to let any of it get to my head. I'm not going to think that I'm a better person than I actually am just because I managed to recover that person's data. They're not saying all of that stuff because they genuinely believe that I am a good person, because they genuinely know who I am. They're only saying all of that shit because I happen to provide them with a positive result. It's not something you can let go to your head, because once somebody comes in who has a bad experience, now you have somebody who comes with it, and it may not even be your fault. It could be somebody that's a bad experience, you fix their liquid damaged motherboard, and the board happens to fucking die. And then you go to get the data from the motherboard, and you do everything the same way that you usually would, and there's a bunch of corrupted files on it. And all the corrupted pictures that are only half pictures, and the documents are all like, there's a bunch of wild cards and funny characters and symbols. That person may say, you didn't do what I needed you to do. You really didn't put effort into this. You didn't try. You're a bad tech. You're a bad guy. I thought, they don't always say, I think you're a bad guy, because they don't want to take responsibility for that. It's funny how my cat stops fucking with shit when I pick up this. Clinton, are you scratching that? I wasn't even looking at him, and as soon as I picked this thing up, he literally took his claw out of my chair. Maybe it was a coincidence. Anyway, because they're going to say these things. They're going to say, I thought you were a good guy. I've had people say that. I thought you were a good guy because I could not recover their fucking data. And it's like, again, am I going to internalize that? Am I going to allow somebody that I don't know to say that I'm a bad human being because I was not able to recover their JPEG files from their fucked up phone? Does that, again, because the same me that did the previous data recovery, where I got back all the information, and this woman literally ran up to me and hugged me and said, you're a good person, as they had a tear coming down their cheek. I'm the same me there as I was when I used that same procedure, that same mindset, the same tools for the person who said, I thought you were a good person. Like, which one, do you pick and choose what you internalize? I don't try to pick and choose the experiences that I internalize. I try to pick and choose the people that I allow to be influences on my life, and I try to think to myself, is this somebody that I know? Is this somebody in my inner circle? Am I going to allow myself to be emotionally manipulated or emotionally influenced by people that don't necessarily have the right to have that control over me? And it's something that, because I think that people should think about, because I hear a lot of this stuff about where people are either, they listen to what others have to say, or they're cold and they're shut off to the world and they don't take advice and they're arrogant. And I don't think I'm arrogant. I just think I'm somebody who, again, I'm genuinely not going to care what somebody has to say unless they're somebody who I know, whose opinion I value, who I've learned, comes up with good things to say. I know I'm kind of getting hungry, so my analogies kind of suck here. But you get the point. If I don't know somebody and I can't necessarily vouch for the fact that their opinion holds weight, I just don't care what they say, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And it allows me to be in these situations that I am in every single day and not overreact and not take it personally when I fail. I don't take it personally when things don't go wrong. I don't let it bring my life down, because I just don't internalize it. And it's something that I'm not necessarily saying that you should take this mindset into your own everyday life, but it's just something to think about. This video has kind of sucked. My memory's been getting kind of shittier and fuzzier lately, and I'm pretty sure it's why I've been doing less of these videos. But hopefully some of that made some sense, and hopefully my dinner tastes good.